if CPOs don't care to provide what is actually normal for fueling up, which is a roof, and if your car is fighting to add a lot of kilowatt hours at very high kilowatt levels, heat is being created and the car is suffering because it requires to cool down the different battery modules at the same time. And my exact car, with about the same kilometers driven, I think I'll be around 170,000 more or less, have completely different state of health in colder countries or in countries where they care to cover up charging stations.
So hi, Sebastian. How are you doing?
Hi, Sayed. Doing well, doing well. A little early this morning. And I have to apologize because of the sound, because here in Spain it's a little hot. And then kids play until very, very late and they're still sleeping. So I needed to move my office to the balcony.
No worries, no worries. I can hear you perfectly fine. So there is no issue. But thank you so much for taking the time out. And with you being today over here, I will be starting my new journey. Let's say it will be eTechvolution podcast. And that's where I'm trying to explore what I can deliver in this area. And so thank you so much for being over here. For this video, I would like to discuss what have you done in the e-mobility space, and especially the most important topic, the burning question nowadays, dynamic prices. And I'm keen to discuss a lot and also learn from you today.
Well, thank you very much, Sayed. It's an honor to be part of this new series of podcasts. My name is Sebastian Fleischhacker. I have been on the amateur, but also very activistically pursuing e-mobility for the last 9, almost 10 years. It started with, well, the most activist part of following, informing, destroying myths, looking for sources of misinformation, then aligning with the big community of EV drivers in the UK, in Spain. I participated in a very big association, a nonprofit association that wanted to push for more e-mobility. And then, I mean, there is a lot of things from the EV driver side that you can do, but if you are missing what is happening in the background, then you can promote change up to a certain level. And then I did that step of, I want to enter e-mobility professionally. But I had a problem. I'm a film director, so nothing to do with engineering, programming, nothing at all. It was just, well, having tested more than 40 EVs, now I am getting close to more than 220,000 electric kilometers. And yeah, well, experience is a certain degree. And I am obsessed. Uh, it is sometimes it's not nice because I forced myself in the last 9 years to be constantly updated on e-mobility. You speak with experts or politicians and they have so many more other things to do. And there are so many things that can change in a week that they cannot really be an expert. So it is great that they rely on us. They can understand what we have seen in different continents and different countries, how immobility has evolved in these countries. And it's not for me to say that I have a crystal ball, but I could tell you, you want to do this way. Let me think. Okay, yeah, that was similar to that experience. It is good because of this and this and this, but it is potentially having issues in that point, that point, that point.
So it's a very active way of knowledge transfer, as well as you know the pain points, and then you can communicate much better, basically, and summarize it, what action plans need to be done as well. But
Yeah.
it was a really nice career change, I would say, from film direction to now working in the EV space and also testing 40 electric cars and 220,000 kilometers. That's amazing. So how long did it take for you to cover 220,000 kilometers? And what is your go-to electric vehicle?
My first and still using it is a Renault Zoe, the one with the French motor R90.
Okay.
With 41 kilowatt hours, but already reaching a degradation of 17%. So the state of health is 83%. And I have been in contact with the Renault Zoe Owners Club in the UK, but also with friends in the Nordics. And then you see that, well, the exact same car behaves in completely different ways, or the degradation is completely different if exposed to certain external variables like the heat we are living through in Spain. Right now, I can tell you it is very early morning and we already have 22 degrees.
Okay.
If the CPOs don't care to provide what is actually normal for fueling up, which is a roof, the roof is understood in northern part of Europe as a protection against rain, but here it is also a protection against heat. And if your car is fighting to add a lot of kilowatt hours at very high kilowatt levels, heat is being created and the car is suffering because it requires to cool down the different battery modules at the same time. And my exact car with about the same kilometers driven, I think I'll be around 170,000 more or less, have completely different state of health in colder countries or in countries where they care to cover up charging stations.
I think we had a really nice discussion about it on LinkedIn, because for me, that was the very first time to hear the role of roof basically on charging stations and what implications it could have. And honestly, I've worked at a charger manufacturer and I've been in the e-mobility industry for the last 4 years. And I never really thought about it, about an electric vehicle in this aspect, because we are always talking about what type of charger, what is a charging curve, how fast the EV can charge. And if we talk about charging curves, then we are talking about the battery temperatures. But the state of health of the vehicle, the degradation, we just touch really on a base level, superficial level. But what you tried to explain over here was completely new dimension. I've never thought about it, where on LinkedIn you also gave some measure about a similar car that was driven in Sweden or Norway, I think you mentioned. And it had only 10% degradation, if I remember the number correctly. Otherwise, I will have to look it up again, what you posted. And your car had 7% or a bit more. And the reason was that you're living in a hot environment, you're living in Spain. And if you are constantly charging at charging sites which do not have any protection against sun, then basically your battery is constantly heating up and the vehicle is going to fight the whole time to air condition the battery to bring it again to optimal temperature. And then the charging speed might not be that higher, as well as the battery degradation will be higher as well.
And I am aware of that and try to charge in the undergrounds or during very early morning hours or late in the night. But sometimes you can't. And especially when you're traveling longer distances, you cannot choose. For example, I did Barcelona, Madrid over 10 times with that small car. There were literally, when I was doing the first trips, only 5 possibilities to charge in this 600 kilometers. So if one failed, your mission failed. And a lot of them were in the middle of a desert. So absolutely nothing to do, no added value services at the location level, obviously no shades. You go there with kids that were younger by that age and you cannot protect yourself from the sun. There are a lot of things that from a hardware manufacturer you're not looking at because you leave that the charge point operator. But sometimes not even the charge point operator is thinking about, hey, I want your car to be protected, and we want to be sustainable being a charge point operator. So we are going to give you certain protection for your car to love my CPO more and come back more often and have a really good user experience. And at the same time, taking care of the state of health of my battery.
I was talking to Christian Hahn, the CEO from Object, and we talked quite a lot in detail because his whole focus was that the e-mobility sector is quite fragmented. And what the use case that we are talking right now is a perfect example of fragmentation. So EV charger manufacturer is thinking about how it should charge the EV. The EV OEM is probably thinking how fast charging could happen, how the battery cells could be defined, how the cooling could be defined so that it is charging at an optimal temperature. And the CPO is thinking, okay, I need to place a reliable charger over here. I need to increase the utilization of my sites, and I need to generate revenue and higher return on investment on it. But everybody is thinking in their own bubbles. But the real issue is that if we could protect the EV batteries, there are going to be a lot of number of EVs on the roads. But if we are not going to do anything about protecting degradation that is possible, that could be achieved, then we are going to have millions of vehicles who will be indirectly or directly basically affected by it. But yeah, just a recent example, I was recently searching a used laptop, and I got to know about from laptops as well, because this is a huge thing. So people are not buying laptops which are constantly being operated at higher temperatures, because that was a huge discussion on the laptop forum. If your laptop did not have proper conditioning, proper airflow, then regardless how many charging sessions you have or battery cycles, as I say, I could see the numbers from different people that the battery was much lower state of health for some of those laptops. Even with 40 battery cycles, it was comparative to around 1,000 battery cycles laptop. Yeah, that was interesting. So now we have learned about your journey, but coming from the film direction business, how did you step into the e-mobility space? What were your first roles?
So I happen to be the power user of uh, one of the most used apps here in Spain, because I started very early, and because I wanted to know and travel, and traveling was so cheap with an EV, that I reviewed a lot of charging stations and fed them with a lot of information about different chargers, how they behaved, how people around these chargers that I met more often, how they envisioned with their car brands, what were their experiences. And I was gathering all that information. I was working for software as a service companies from Spain for the German market. And they approached me several times until Wallbox Chargers bought that company, and then they hired me. I was the proud first hire after the Wallbox takeover.
Nice. And the role that you were doing was based on software side of things, the roaming, or
So I have to say, it was the weirdest job interview that I ever had.
okay.
I was presented with, Sebastian, you have knowledge in all these fields. You speak all these languages. You have sales experience. You have software as a service experience. We have these 5 roles. Choose one. And the rest were boring, and I didn't know anything about roaming. And then I took roaming,
Okay.
which connects me very well to the topic of this podcast, which is dynamic pricing. And I got to learn about pricing models, about relationships between EMSPs, electric mobility service providers, and CPOs, charge point operators, and easy ways of relationships. What are the most difficult part of relationships? What is adding value to charge point operators? What is adding value to EMSPs?
Mhm.
Certain bigger CPOs and EMSPs or aggregators in this sector divide this role in two. I had to do both. So I'd say I've added about 1 million charging points to different EMSP apps. So I helped two companies uh, internationalize. To internationalize, it is great to speak languages. I speak 6 languages, and I post on LinkedIn in several in several of them.
Yes, I've seen English,
Well, that
Spanish, and German.
yeah, that helps. That helps.
But
From
how
there,
does
I yes,
sorry,
please.
how does the addition of 1 million charge points happen? So do you have to add some certain parameters, or how does it look like when you're onboarding?
Yeah. So there is the easy way, which is sometimes more expensive, and there is the difficult way, which is closer to not costing you, but the price of the man hours of the integrators.
Mhm.
And recently, well, there is this third option to do these type of integrations through an API, for example, where the integration via the open standard has currently no cost. Anyways, using one of the two first options, the open protocols or the roaming hubs. In the roaming hubs, well, you have the benefits of having a quicker reach. Then some roaming hubs work better than others, take more care about the quality of the information flowing through the hubs. And then you have to, well, follow up on all the different partners, because if you act as an EMSP and as a PO, you need to do the roaming agreements with the contrary. The roaming agreements can only be closed from an EMSP to a CPO or from a CPO to an EMSP. And they both need to agree under which conditions they want to operate.
Okay.
Sometimes you'd say, well, the one that sells energy has, how we say here in Spain, has the the power
Mhm.
and would decide it. But on the other side, if you don't have users or coverage of users in different countries that could come to your territory, then the MSP has a powerful position there.
Okay. No, nice to hear. And you have mentioned a huge number, that was 1 million charge points. But apart from that, what were the most exciting projects or milestones you have been part of in this journey?
Well, after the Spanish player, I joined the Danish player, and they had more international ambitions.
Mhm.
Means that I finally could speak my languages with more people, and we could only also speak more currencies, and then do more international projects outside of only the European territory, which leads you to understand that e-mobility is different in India than how it is in China, how it is in Australia, how it is in even there are differences between Canada and United States. Then the invoicing part of things, how VAT works in all these countries. Well, that was a huge learning for somebody that was worried about the sound quality. What is the right lens for a camera? Are we interviewing the right people? Back in the days when I was doing films, right? So yeah, it was an amazing growth story in terms of knowledge that you need to acquire.
Mhm.
And it is always cool to have experts in these different fields to dumb it down for a film producer.
Amazing. You have mentioned about 6 languages. Before I move to the second question, I mean, which are the 6 languages that you speak?
I live in beautiful Catalonia, so I speak Catalan. My mom is Argentinian, hence the
Okay.
mate, and I speak Spanish. My dad is German. I grew up in about 7, 8 different countries because my dad was a diplomat. So I had to learn French because of growing up in Swiss schools,
Okay.
English. Portuguese, given my grandfather was Portuguese. I grew up in Brazil. My wife is Brazilian, and I speak Portuguese with my daughter. So Portuguese is a thing that is there. And I think that was all, right? Or Spanish? Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
These are all my languages.
Nice. So now coming on to the part that you saw different way of working across different countries. Could you summarize in a couple of sentences or how different countries are working, like India, China, US, and Germany? So what were the differences or nuances that you could see over there?
Yeah. So, for example, we have been talking for very long in Europe about plug and charge and about the development of plug and charge and how many parts in the ecosystem need to be aligned in plug and charge for it to really work. And I've seen more advancements in in North America in terms of plug and charge than what I've seen here in Europe, for example. Another big
Okay.
difference, for example, in the Indian market is the payment methods. How many people are unbanked and they don't want to go through the same history of Europeans of needing to have a bank account, then evolve and have online banking, and then not even needing banks because you have transfer methods that are for people that are unbanked. Same things happening in Africa, where there are very, very advanced ways of paying for the electricity for your car. Then the method used in China, where such an important player as the e-mobility service provider here in Europe has not really a big role. The transactions normally happens between the EV owner and the one that and the company that is selling you electricity. Then lower prices of electricity makes everything easier.
So is it ad hoc payment in China then?
The ad hoc and app, but there is one way to communicate with one app to all CPOs.
Okay. Okay. So, but there are different energy providers, or is it only one
Yeah.
energy provider?
Yes. Not 100% sure, but from what I recall, has been a long time. I have not done business with China
No worries.
on
But still,
the
it's interesting
CPO
to know
CPO.
that EV owners is directly paying to the grid, basically, the energy operator, right? If I understand
Yes,
correctly.
to the charge point operator. It is possible in Europe as well. It is one of the most advanced systems I've seen around here, which is not a CPO, which is not an EMSP, but it is a marketplace and an end-to-end payment method, similar to Groupon, Booking.com. And that allows you also a direct relationship between the CPO and the end user. That gives them more freedom. It gives them more variables. We will start speaking about dynamic pricing soon. Dynamic pricing is all about variables, but the amount of variables are very limited on the dynamic pricing side. But if you approach charging more from I have a certain amount of bananas to sell you today, and tomorrow they will be rotten. So I'll better do an extra effort to sell all my bananas today because tomorrow I will be making a loss.
Indeed.
So what about hotel rooms in Valentine's Day? Valentine's Day, after that beautiful weekend that you can spend with your loved one there, will expire. Do we want them to expire because we don't have certain variables to adjust the pricing and to get it out, to get the word out to a willing audience?
Okay.
Does the plane or the airline lose money if a flight that will fly off at 12 is not filling up the plane? The plane will fly anyways. right?
Why not just adjust the prices on a very flexible schedule to make it attractive?
An airplane, right, will depart the airport, be it full or empty. That flight will happen so or so. So if you can avoid this plane from departing the airport empty, well, why don't you use this marketplace idea that has been around and is very, very highly regulated in the EU? Why not use it? Because right now, for example, Germany, you see a lot of people turning away charging or the choice of their next vehicle being an electric vehicle because the kilowatt hour is so expensive. And it is expensive for several reasons. One of them being, well, it is a privilege to have a vehicle given by your company, which leads you to get a fuel card or a new EMSP fuel card business model thinking. And as it is not controlled what type of charging you do, CPOs can simply put 90 cents, €1 per kilowatt hour, because the EV driver doesn't care. He's using what the company gave them. This is being used and abused by several CPOs, and it's not going to help EV adoption for people that want to have the alternative to not needing to go to the repair shop of or having programmed obsolescence in their internal combustion engines with so many gears and heat generating engines. So
Sebastian,
yes, there are different ways, and this doesn't help.
Before we jump into the dynamic pricing, I just want to ask about the last part. So from your experience so far, what major shifts have you seen in the EV roaming and pricing strategies? And then let's move on to the next step, which will be dynamic pricing.
Okay. So recently there have been some changes in the roaming world. As I said before, roaming world requires 2-3 players sometimes, and these need to be aligned on how they set the prices, how they communicate the prices, how they receive the prices, and how they forward the prices to the end users, right? And this is difficult because suddenly EMSPs need to take care of adapting and being flexible to the creativity in the pricing world of other CPOs. CPOs sell their own customers sometimes. In some situations, they are not allowed because, for example, they have a monopolistic situation in certain type of routes in a country, and then they cannot sell electricity themselves. That would be a thing to remove from this equation. But the more granular you get, the more granular the EMSP needs to react to one CPO. But this EMSP's work is to react to this CPO, this CPO, this CPO, this CPO. And more CPOs get more and more creative. But there is also a competition between the CPOs that need to distinguish their service from each other, which means that they have a certain interpretation on how pricing should happen. And they will not be standard, because if they are standard, what is the difference from CPO 1 to CPO 4, right? If pricing is the main differentiator there, obviously you can think of added value services, you can think about loyalty services for your EV drivers, and at several levels. But on the roaming part, what can be transmitted is the pricing situation. How do I sell a charging service to an EMSP?
Okay.
And what has changed? Well, it has gotten more complex, and with time passing, grids are constrained. People are more aware of time of use, tariffs. This wants to be applied to public charging. Then we have countries where VAT is radically different at home than on the streets, which also creates certain locations which are in between, which can be priced in one way or the other. Then there are more and more companies that understand that certain locations can be semi-public. So they serve and are taxed different if they are used by internal resources than by external resources. So the complexity is increasing. Now, are the different players needing to speak the language, understand the language, and transmit the language to the end user advancing at the same speed? That is not the case right now. Yeah, protocols will advance. Everything will be reshuffled. And it is a never-ending story of fighting complexity and scams.
Yeah, the
Because
scams are
fraud is a big...
the next part that is going. So I also did some interview with Upstream. I have to publish it, but we talked in detail about cybersecurity and how cybersecurity is the next wave that needs to be tackled when it comes to EV infrastructure. But yeah, probably by the time I publish this, either the cybersecurity video is out or this will first come out. Let's see. But
last ICNC.
No.
Yeah,
okay, you met. So you're telling about your experience at ICNC about cybersecurity.
Yes. On last ICNC, I did a panel with Peter van Zeulen from Last Mile Solution on 30 ways of committing fraud and become rich while charging. So we analyzed very deep 30 situations, and now there are more than 40 something. Recently here in Spain, quishing has become fashionable. Quishing is faking QR codes and using the most popular cell phone payment method to avoid needing to pay the CPO. So yeah.
Can I dig deeper? Because that's the one this is the one I really find it interesting. How does it work? Actually, I've seen so many videos where people are removing the fake QR code from a charger. So I understand the person can go and charge with their apps, or maybe there is a QR code, they can scan it and then try to pay it. Gladly, I haven't been part of any scam, but how does it work? So if a person scans a fake QR code, what happens? Do they steal their credentials? What happens basically? This is what I do not know, honestly.
It really depends if you as a hacker want to hurt the charge point operator or the one consuming electricity. There are two ways of scamming. You can either scam the CPO or either scam the end user. If you want to scam the end user, yes, that would be probably the way to follow, to extract a payment method and clone it and use it very quickly and with no second factor authentication nor countermeasures against it. Or you can bridge the access methods of the CPOs who are not looking. A lot of them say, oh, we are not scammed, or oh, yes, we experience some scamming, but it is manageable. So manageable is not cybersecurity, but that's the problem with certain CPOs that don't care or don't understand it, or they haven't put efforts on the cybersecurity part.
So with that
yes,
QR code, they are able to hack
ways.
into their CPO's backend system or their financial system, or okay. That's interesting. I always thought that it was only going to hurt the end customers. Hurting the CPO was actually never thought about it.
There is there is a big one that needed to go out of business because the scam was so big.
I mean, I'm laughing now, but maybe that was not the laughing point for the CPO. But it's something to research because I'm really surprised. So this has been a fascinating discussion so far. We've covered Sebastian's unique journey from film director to e-mobility expert, the challenges of roaming, and even cybersecurity risk in charging. In the next part, we will dive into the main topic, dynamic pricing, why it matters, how it works, and what the future looks like. Stay tuned for the part 2.